Sports Podcast, #1 in Florida. 3, 2, 1.
Oh, a very scary intro from the producer, Ben Castro. It's the Halloween edition, everybody, of Florida's favorite hockey podcast, as the man just said. Give him a follow. Benjamin Castro. What is it, Ben?
It's Benjamin558.
Okay, something like that.
On Instagram.
Yes, yeah,
Benjamin
and Podcast
558.
Junkies. And Christian, who's on the other side of the curtain, giggling uncontrollably. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a very special week. It's been a big week in Florida hockey. We have a lot of things to talk about. I am your host, Rod Peterson. She is the co-host, Sarina Taylor, and I love the costumes. Sarina, happy Halloween.
Thank you. This is about as Halloween-y as I get.
And what do you have to say? You want to go to the wide shot, Ben, of our distinguished in-studio guests here today. Who are they? Bill Lindsay. Hi, Billy.
It's awfully quiet today.
You've aged.
Yeah.
And Ed Jovanovski. Oh, Eddie, you look very pale. Are you feeling okay?
This is definitely more of this is a goaltending jersey, so it's definitely more of a Vasilevsky square kind of situation here.
Yeah. That, of course, coming from Blake Dodge, original Dwayne Rollison. So, hey, we're going to jump right into it. We're brought to you by Beach House Pompano and Beresco, or at least when we have guests, we do. And as Jeff Rimmer said the other day, he said, who's your guest this week? And, hey, guys are busy. I'm going to tell you who we reached out to, but let's just say this, Sarina, before we get to our 10 things here, and we have a few viewer comments and questions I want to get to. Remember last year we said, who do you want on the show? People responded, we got them all.
Of course
we got
did.
them all. So I don't know who to do next. Just go through them again, or what are you thinking?
I was actually thinking about that the other night. Last night I was thinking about when we had Peter Worrell on here. He was so great. I just loved him. And I think I'm going to have to go schmooze some of my boys again.
What do you mean, in the press box?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I really feel like I'm going to personally try to get Peter Horacek on here.
Right.
He will be fantastic.
Yes, because in the press box of the Panthers games, they don't normally talk to me, but they flock around her. I don't understand why that is. But I will say this. When we do have guests, the gift cards are provided by Beach House Pompano and Beresco. And away we go. I want to thank the guys from the Get the Edge podcast, by the way, for this. Give them a follow, Get the Edge podcast, and they do the best betting show that I've seen here in the state of Florida. And TK dropped this off for us, and I appreciate him.
Does he have a mustache in that thing?
A mustache? Yeah, Barkow's got a beard and a mustache in this thing, actually.
What is
Same
that?
thing right up here, too. Yeah, so it's a long story.
strange.
Okay, we are how many minutes into this, Benny boy?
3 minutes in. 3 minutes.
Three, that's all. Okay, let's get down to business and quit Mickey Mousing. Before we look ahead to the Finland Global Series with the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers, let's look back a minute. I said that the week has been an interesting week for Florida hockey. I do write for the South Florida Tribune, a column in there weekly, and I led off with the Stamkos return. You and I watched it on Monday night. Steven Stamkos, after 16 seasons in Tampa Bay, obviously first-round pick in 2008, returns for the first time. You and I watched it all. You watched, I think, 2 periods of it. The Predators lost in overtime, 3-2 to the Lightning. But what did you think of Stammer's return? They certainly couldn't have built it up much more than they did.
They built it up and then would not shut up about it. It was like, can we please? Like, I understand, I get it, but like I said to you the other night, we're not talking about Rocket Richard here. Like, let's chill out. But one thing I definitely noticed about Nashville, and it's something I predicted at the start of the year, is they're still discombobulated. They kind of did such a overhaul on their really good players, and they're still trying to find their game. It's exactly what happened to Edmonton last year, and realistically this year, you have just different guys all over the place, and they're still kind of just trying to find that missing piece, whereas Tampa looked unreal. Tampa was really good. They've been good in so many games this year, and it's like I said to you, there's so many people counted Tampa out. They're not going to make the playoffs here. What are you talking about? Look at their lines. They still have a lot of core guys that were on that Stanley Cup winning team in 2021. So they have guys that have been playing together for 4 years or longer. They're clicking. Nashville wasn't clicking, but they're going to be all right. But I don't think they're not going to win the Stanley Cup. They're not Stanley Cup contenders.
Have you been reading my diary? Because that was my second point.
No.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to what you just said. But just back on the Stamkos thing for a second. It was on ESPN Plus. It was not on regular television down here in South Florida. So I enjoyed watching it, as did you, obviously. But just back to the Stamkos thing for a second. What's new that you and I haven't talked about? On NHL radio Wednesday morning, Elliot Friedman talked about this. There were two big returns this week. Marc-Andre Fleury went into Pittsburgh. Last time ever. I guess it was a big to-do. The Penguins put on the ice Letang and Crosby for the last shift, and it was a nicey thing. And the Wild won, and Flower. He said, Elliot Friedman, the big dude, the Adam Schefter of hockey, if you will, up in Canada, goes, there's still a lot of raw feelings with Stamkos. And yeah, not just based on what we saw Monday night, but there is behind the scenes. I guess that happens, right? It's going to take a while.
Well, it's a lot different situation than Marc-Andre Fleury. A lot different. Marc-Andre Fleury's been gone for a long time.
Yep.
You know, I get Pittsburgh. He's always going to be a Penguin. You know, when guys play on a team like that for the majority of their career, it's just where his heart is. But he's been gone for years. And so, yeah, the stuff with Stamkos is still raw. Watching him the other night, I feel like he's kind of maybe lost a step, but it could just be because I feel like the whole team is out of sync and he's playing with some new guys. But yeah, it was a tricky one the other night. You can't really judge the way the team is, but I'm sure there are raw feelings. Why wouldn't there be? It's just like that anytime you quit a job or leave a job or somebody chooses not to hire you or me or whatever it happens to be. It's basically what they were saying. You know, we don't really want to pay you that much anymore, so...
God knows we've talked about that enough, but the pundits, I'm just saying what they said. Well, you and I are smart enough, we can see it ourselves. Did it not look like Stamkos was close to tearing up? And I actually thought Victor Hedman was. I can't tell if it was sweat or if he was tearing up a little bit.
Hedman was definitely sweating. You could see it.
Right.
But Stamkos, sure, I'm sure he was tearing up. How could you not be emotional? But at the end of the day, I personally think, like, when we saw him walking in the rink, I was like, he's probably the one guy that is like, can we just fucking get this over with already? He's sick of hearing about it. I was sick of hearing about it. Come on. And he was probably like, okay, I appreciate this video montage thing, but my job is to play the game, and I'm grateful for my time here, but let's move on.
Ray Ferraro said that on the ESPN Plus broadcast, that if there's anybody that wants this over, it's Stamkos. And guess what? As of now, as far as the Cats and Bolts podcast goes, it's over. So to what you were talking about earlier, it's my second point. If you look at the standings right now in the Atlantic Division. Oh, hi, Billy. What do you have to say, Bill?
Oh, Bill.
I would say something. Bill Lindsay is on NHL Network this week because the Panthers are on the road. And I thank you. You don't need to give me a Christmas gift. You bought Sling TV.
Yeah.
Therefore, we got NHL Network. I couldn't live without it. You see, when you get up in the morning or when one of us gets up, I have it on. I can't live without it. I like it a lot.
Well, the NHL Network only exists in the U.S., and it's sporadic at best. So it's really hard for us to try to figure out. So basically, the cable company that we have comes with what we pay for. We don't get a choice. So I'm like, how are we going to find this? And they play the World Junior games on there. So I wasn't about to mess around for the next little bit. So that's why we have it.
In our last place, we had it on Xfinity. In our new place, we don't. So she bought Sling for like $70.
Not even.
Whatever it was. A very worthwhile purchase. So thank you again. Now, Tampa Bay, well, it goes Florida 1, Tampa Bay 2 in the standings. And I just wonder, I love it as a guy that talks Florida hockey, writes a column on it for the South Florida Tribune. 1-2. How long do you think that lasts? I feel like you feel Tampa's legit and are going to stay legit.
I feel like they are legit. I don't know if they're a number 2 team. It's way too early in the season for us to even be wondering if the standings are going to stay the same, which I know that's not the point you're getting at. But man, after watching Tampa last night, they're for real. Or the other night, it's not the first time I watch them this season. They're slick. Their guys work hard. They know they have to step it up. I think they're going to be all right. I've seen a couple of different games of the Panthers. I've seen 2 different teams of the Panthers this year. One where I'm like, how? This is embarrassing. And then another one where they come out flying. So, but they're always going to squeak it out. They're always going to squeak it out. The Panthers are not going to fall in the standings. Tampa might go up and down, but I think Tampa has enough character. I've said this a million times on this show. When you've won Stanley Cups, as a team, there's something better there. You learn. You're Stanley Cup winners. You just learn as a team. You're a better organization. Washington won 1 Stanley Cup, and Same as St. Louis. They're just not those type of teams. But Tampa won a lot of Stanley Cups recently, and they can bring it, in my opinion. They're not just going to roll over, which is what I said at the start of the year. Everybody's counting them out of the playoffs. They hadn't even played a game yet. I think they have a respectful team. They've got a great goaltender. They've got great defensemen. They've got three great lines. I don't know. I'm happy with their play.
What do you think, Bill? How long will the standings stick this way?
I feel like that's what Bill looked like in the Stanley Cup final last year with
That's when he came home from the Stanley Cup final. Yeah, exactly. Well, I'll say this. Hey, it's the fun thing about predictions and why she doesn't like to do them, and I respect that. I do them because I don't care. I'll remind you how off I was, and we're 2.5 weeks into the regular season. I had Tampa missing the playoffs, but it's Boston that's out of the playoff spot. And when I asked last week the viewers for questions, a lot of you were talking about the Bruins and Jeremy Swayman and all the money that he got. I looked it up today. He has the 22nd best goals against average in the NHL right now, Jeremy Swayman. Tied with Bob, believe it or not. One guy's crushing it. The other guy isn't, but I don't feel like talking about the Bruins right now. This is a show in South Florida, in Boca Raton. I want to talk about the Panthers. And to the viewer questions, thank you, Alex Butsky. You met Alex at the tailgate party last year. He organizes the thing. He says, are you going to Finland? No. And I appreciate that. What?
Alex needs to watch our show more.
Yeah.
Alex, watch the show. We talked about that last week.
Yeah, we don't go on the road. I don't care to go to really anywhere other than South Florida. We're going to take Sarina to Italy, France, Europe. We are. Yeah, for her 29th birthday. You're welcome. But no plans to go there for hockey.
Wait. What are you all, you're welcome, about? The fuck? It's like...
What do you think?
I mean, in 10 years... Wink, wink. This lucky girl's gonna go to Italy or France or somewhere. Lucky girl.
That's not it. Do you really want to know what milestone birthday we're talking about? That's why I'm saying. Not like it's a big surprise we're going to Europe.
Wink, wink.
Okay, her 30th, not her 29th, okay? Yeah, it's out of the bag. We're not going to Finland. And if we make a road trip, it's Tampa Bay. That's about as far as we're willing to go.
Literally.
Yeah.
That's it. Although we are going to Nashville the first week of December, but the Preds are not at home.
Yeah, we're not going for hockey games. We're going for something else. So you say we need to have Alex watch more. To reiterate, you're not a fan of the Global Series. We talked about this last show, but we'll say it again. The Panthers, Dallas Stars meeting this weekend, Friday, Saturday. You're not a fan of them doing it.
No, it's just ridiculous that they're sending them overseas in I don't want to say the middle of the season. It's not smack dab in the middle, but the season's already started, and it's tough on those guys to do that. What is the purpose of that? What's the purpose?
Marketing.
But send them over at the start of the season like they did a few years ago. They sent the Kings and whoever else to England, and the Flames went to China and all that kind of stuff. They weren't doing that, making those long trips in the middle of the season. Now, from Florida, it's not that long of a trip to go to Finland, but it's too far for them to be going and too much of a time change to do that in the middle of the season. But again, nothing that this league does makes any sense to me. So I've stopped trying to figure out, why are they doing this? I will never understand it.
Historical references here or some stats and figures. The Panthers have 4 players from Finland. The Dallas Stars have 3, including 2 really good ones, Roope Hintz and Miro Heiskanen. The Panthers were there, was it 2016, 2017, 2018. They played the Jets, Winnipeg Jets twice. They split. Each team won 4-2, and Paul Maurice was the coach of the Jets. So they've all been over there, not necessarily all together.
This season, I mean, we were just talking last night about how long the friggin' season is. Baseball doesn't screw around. And again, you can't play hockey back to back to back. It's too much. It's too hard on the legs. It's a different sport. You can't. Baseball's different. They're not blowing out certain body parts unless you're a pitcher. However, we've got the Four Nations Cup this year. We got the Stanley Cup playoffs that went till the end of friggin' June, and they're going to again. Stockpiling everything in 1 year, it's just too much for the players. And Finland is playing in the Four Nations Cup. There's just a lot going on. It's like, pause, go do this, come back and play for your team again till the end of June, and then come back and report to training camp in the middle of August.
I don't think the NHL does anything wrong. I love them. That's where we disagree on this. But I was on the Panthers Den podcast on the weekend, and the host Bill likes to play the rapid fire questions. And he goes, "Okay, Rod, which would you rather have? What do you like better, Winter Classic or the Stadium Series?" I'm like, "What's the difference?" And he didn't know. I think there's too many of these things.
Too much.
Yeah, Heritage Classic, Winter Classic, Stadium Series, Global Series. It's a lot.
Right. And so here's where it all started. When Edmonton and Montreal had that first outdoor game. God forbid if Canada did something better. Every year after that, it's been in this American city, in this American city. It's just too much. And then Edmonton and Calgary played again last year outdoors for the first time in 20 years. Like, it's ridiculous.
Every league's the same, though. It's like too much of a good thing. There's no such thing as too much of a good thing. Now, my next point is this. Not to set you off or trigger you.
Oh, God, here we go. I didn't even look at the paper.
No. I just wonder if how you feel about the fact the Panthers are NHL darlings now. Not if they are. They are. 8 preseason games, which is more than anybody else. Playing in the preseason neutral site game up in Quebec City. Now the Global Series. Featured in the Amazon Prime series, which debuted on October the 4th. It's wearing them out. But I don't hear anybody complaining about it, though.
They've been the darlings for 2 years.
Yeah.
They have been. When they went to the Stanley Cup final against Vegas, I mean, come on. We all know, I don't care how you slice it, everybody outside of being a Panthers fan agrees that they were favored in the officiating department. There was calls against Boston that they never should have. It was all garbage. And I said to you right away, first thing I said was they're favoring the Panthers because they want to push them further. And now they got what they want. And now they're the darlings. They don't care what they do. Teams aren't winning the Stanley Cup repetitively anymore because the league is pushing it in different directions where it's convenient for them to try to grow the game. They're happy the Panthers won. Now they don't give a shit what the Panthers do. They're the darlings, but the league doesn't care anymore if the Panthers win or not.
Okay, then how long do you think it'll last? I'm interested to see.
It depends. Once Gary Bettman gets somebody else in his sights on who he wants to win, it's like, let's see. Nashville. Nashville's going to be the next ones. The Nashville Predators are going to be the next darlings.
Let's get them a cup.
Exactly. They got all these guys. They've never won the Stanley Cup. This got this Smashville bullshit going on. It's a circus at the rink. That's all they care about. That's all they care about is that. So the thing is, he's going to push. Now that 2 Florida teams have won the Stanley Cup, he doesn't care. 2 California teams won the Stanley Cup. You think he puts any effort into California anymore? No.
I'm not arguing. I'm
not expecting you to completely agree because I know we don't see the same thing about Gary Bettman. That's fine. But my point is, I've lived in this country for a long ass time and I've seen the things. It's a completely different ball game down here from in Canada. They don't have to push it. We've said that a million times. So now, who's going to be the next one? It's going to be Nashville. They made sure Ovi got himself a cup. You bet your ass they did. Next one's going to be Nashville.
Not even really arguing. Like I remember, you all remember, you guys watched this really closely, the Boston-Florida series 2 years ago, the hand pass that was not called a hand pass in the offensive zone. She would say they favored the Panthers. I don't know. The facts would show that they did favor the Panthers. So it's something that our audience can go back and forth with. And if they decide to now favor Nashville, I don't have a problem with that.
You don't have a problem with the league favoring a team?
No, because it happens.
Doesn't mean it's right.
Can I walk it back? I don't care. Fair.
Because you don't have any skin in the game. That's
None.
why.
And it's
That's
awesome.
why.
It's called non-attachment, and it's great. So right now, the Panthers are the darlings. We're all enjoying it. We'll see how long it lasts. Your little Nashville conspiracy, how long? When does that come to fruition here? When does that happen?
They're planting the seed, my friend. They're planting the seed.
Yeah. Again, not saying she's wrong, not agreeing, however, in any way, shape, or form. Just one more.
You just said it happens. You're like, I don't care. It happens, but I don't care.
Oh, I'm not saying it's going to be Nashville. It'll be somebody. I'm just Who knows who it'll be? We'll find
Well,
out.
I'm saying Nashville because of the talent that they're stacked with. They're not going to go to San Jose and expect them or Chicago to win. They want Chicago, though, because of Bedard. But I think that's enough. They can just kind of, put a little gasoline on that fire by getting Bedard there. That's going to be enough for a little while. We'll be fine. Shesterkin won the Vezina, so we're okay for the Rangers for a little while. Nashville's got the talent, and that's where they're
How
going to go.
in the hell do we get into these things? Like, her and the entire country of Canada feels Gary Bettman hates Canada and they're against him, and the Bettman curse that goes back to 1993. Going into Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final last year, I said to this beautiful lady, what are you going to do if the Oilers win tonight in Game 7? What are you going to do? Who are you going to blame now? And you're like, I don't want to talk about that.
I've never blamed Gary Bettman. I've never blamed Gary Bettman for the fact that the Oilers didn't win the Stanley Cup. That was on them. They didn't win. I've never said that Gary Bettman doesn't want to promote hockey in Canada. That's the bottom line. He only promotes it in the U.S. He doesn't have to promote it in Canada. The game sells itself up there. It's different. I don't think Gary Bettman is the reason that Edmonton didn't beat Florida this year. Edmonton should have won. They didn't. That's their fault. It's not Gary Bettman's fault. That's how I feel.
I get it. I'm just wondering where you were on that.
Here's Vegas.
It was a 1-goal game in Game 7. So whether it's you or whoever's calling it a Bettman curse, what would you have said had they won?
Sure, but I've never said it was a Bettman curse. That's why I don't believe in that. But Vegas was another team. Vegas is another team.
He wanted them to win.
That he wanted. Telling you. Vegas made it to the Stanley Cup in their first year, and he's like, whoa, gold mine. Let's see what we can do to push this shit. And he did, and they won.
The reason I'm not fighting her on this is I have seen it in leagues. So I know that it happens. I mean, and it's also, by the way, not saying that it's fixed. We're not sitting here saying that it's fixed.
No,
are you, right?
No,
it's not
at all. NFL don't do that, though.
No, they don't. But getting this back on the rails, if we will. I'll just say this about Bettman. 1999 NHL draft in Buffalo. My dad and I were walking up the stairs into the museum. It was the Friday night reception. My dad was working for the Dallas Stars. I was there doing my thing. And Bettman stopped and talked to us. And he always has had time, any time for me. He's just been nice to me. That's all. And we're neighbors, as I pointed out on last week's show here in Boca. I feel like we're all going to be going for coffee one day. And you're really going to be walking back your words.
I look at guys like Mike Babcock, Daryl Sutter. Don't necessarily think they're bad people, but I wouldn't want to work for them. So I wouldn't want to play for Mike Babcock, wouldn't want to play for Daryl Sutter. But I don't think they're bad. There's a difference. I'm not saying Gary Bettman's a bad person. I just think he's bad at his job. I know people who are good people, but they're terrible at their jobs. It's life.
Yeah.
It's the way it goes. But the NHL is the only league who hasn't gotten rid of the donkey at the top. All the other leagues don't piss around with that stuff.
I think he's good at what he does, but we're never going to agree on that. I want to go back to something on the Panthers being darlings and so forth. I had Iron Mike Keenan on my other talk show that I do every day a couple of weeks ago, former Panthers coach, 2001 to 2004. He brought up Paul Maurice bringing back tough hockey, rough hockey, and that the NHL is a copycat league and that all the other teams are going to be trying to build a tough team like the Panthers have here, Bill Zito, Paul Maurice. With regards to fighting coming back, you love hockey, rough hockey just as much as I do. I brought that up on my talk show. Somebody did the numbers real fast. 4 seasons ago, going back 4 seasons, here's the number of fights in the NHL. 331, 334, 311, and this year they're on pace for 385. That's a big jump.
A, that goes to show you the game is being manipulated. B, the Panthers aren't rough, they're dirty. There's a difference. Okay? C, the Panthers and every other team would be rough if these chintzy little, this is a hook. Yeah, hooking penalty, but a guy gets cross-checked from behind in front of the net and there's no call. That's why the league is going, we need to figure out how to bring back fighting. Stop calling the bullshit hooking penalties. Somebody lifted a stick the other night, penalty. I turned to Rod and said, what was he supposed to do on that play? I think it was the Panther game. The Panthers were back checking, lifted the guy's stick. I go, what was he supposed to do on that play? What was he supposed to do? They call stupid penalties and let the stupid stuff go. They let the dirty stuff go. They let guys get crushed into the boards. There's no penalty. There should be way more boarding calls than what there are. That's why the players are confused. They don't know what to do. So if they drop the gloves to fight, Corey Perry fought the other night. Both guys fought through the gloves. They went out. It was over. But they can't take their helmets off or they'll get an extra penalty. So they're supposed to break their knuckles on the other guy's helmet in a fight because they're not allowed to take their helmets off. If I was a player that played 10 years ago, I would, like Corey Perry's been in the league for at least 47 years. I would have no idea what I'm supposed to do as a guy like Corey Perry.
So you're saying they're fighting, I'm not arguing with you, I'm clarifying. They're fighting born out of frustration.
No, they're trying to bring fighting back into the league.
Think so? That was my question.
Right. So I went way off on a tangent because I do that. But they're trying to bring fighting back. But you can't bring fighting back if you're going to let chintzy shit go and call chintzy stuff. Come on. Figure it out. When we watched hockey in the 80s, you go back, find the 1984 Stanley Cup final, the last game. Just go watch it. You will see things that you're like, that's a penalty. Whoa, that's a penalty. That's a penalty. They never called any of it. Because that's how hockey was played, unless it was a blatant trip or a blatant hook that took away a scoring chance. Why are you calling hooks that have nothing to do with the play? Interference penalties. Then the players are skating by screaming at the ref, that's interference. Dude, move your feet and you won't get interfered with. Not many guys get murdered on the ice like Connor McDavid does. That guy gets absolutely, someone's crawling on his back at all times. He's not screaming for penalties unless he truly believes it's a penalty.
Last week we called it the last word. I've decided it'll be Sarina's soapbox. Because you've just launched into these, which is fine. It's got to have a name.
Well, it's absolutely
it's all
ridiculous.
Good. But we're moving on. You mentioned Connor McJesus. The latest NHL news, Connor McDavid is out 2 to 3 weeks with a lower body injury. The Oilers are 4-5-1. What's your concern level?
Not as bad as it was last year. Last year was definitely more frustrating. It was like, why are we not winning hockey games? Why are we not playing well? I don't understand. Watching the first period against Detroit the other night, I was like, here we go. Shades of 2023. It's happening all over again. Could we please do something? Anything. If we could do anything, that would be great. And all of a sudden, when that third period hit, boom, boom, boom. They put McDavid and Draisaitl back together on the same line to get him going. Edmonton came back and won the game. No, those two cannot play together all the time. Ideally, yes, but they can't. Doesn't work like that. That's what got them going. So I saw some glimpses of positivity with McDavid being hurt. It sucks, but it's not anything super serious. Like, to be honest, and I can't believe this is about to come out of my lips, but Evander Kane being gone is actually hurting Edmonton. He's going to be out 5-6 months. It's hurting them. They're more effective when he's on the ice.
I'm sure it hurts your soul that Evander Kane was hurt in the playoffs last year. We found out Leon Draisaitl was hurt in the playoffs last year, and the Panthers were not, and they romped to the Stanley Cup, proving again the healthiest team usually is the one that wins the Stanley Cup, not necessarily the best team.
But since we're going to bring this up, I'm going to point out that not one Oilers player personnel fan was like, oh, if we weren't injured, we would have won. Because that's all I heard from Florida the year before. Just FYI.
The proof shows that they might not be wrong. I heard it too. Yeah. And I didn't believe it either.
Florida wasn't nearly as
but then they
injured
come
as
back
Edmonton
healthy and
was.
win it. So,
all right.
Interesting. What do you think, Billy? We know his thoughts on this. We already know. Thanks, Bill. Dang, you're quiet over there.
That's the quietest Bill has ever been on this show.
We got to send a photo of this to Bill. Best looking guest we've ever had, I might add. Not a lot of competition. What's Christian? You find something funny over there? Conor Bard, we understand, I was informed today, is frustrated. That's the quote. Not that he's not scoring. He's got 9 points in 10 games. But that the Chicago Blackhawks aren't winning. He wants to win. That was the take from Jared Dumba, my hockey analyst on my other show. How do you feel about that?
Conor Bard has not been on a winning team in the last 6 years of his life. He was not on a winning team with the Regina Pats. He knew going into Chicago he was not going to be on a winning team. That, in my opinion, is crap. I don't think Conor Bard is running around saying that. He's a classy guy. He's never said anything negative in the media. That is Jared making some shit up. Whoever he heard it from, that's bullshit. Conor Bard would never. Sure, I'm sure he's frustrated they're not winning, but this is typical. Somebody, probably not Jared,
started something.
Somebody had to start some shit because everybody stopped talking about Bedard. So we got to start talking about Bedard again. Let's pretend he said, this is what the media does. We've talked about this on this show before. They make shit up. They're making some stuff up now that makes absolutely zero sense. Oh my God, big story out of Chicago. Bedard's frustrated they aren't winning. Do you think that the veterans on that team are going to look at a 19-year-old and go, oh, you're right. I guess we better pick it up? That is ridiculous. It doesn't even deserve a conversation. Well, now that I'm done, it doesn't.
Sarina's Soapbox, brought to you by Tide.
Do you, can you even with what I just said? It's like, come on. Everybody's frustrated they're not winning. Fucking newsflash.
Yeah. I don't know. I've been beaten into submission in my life that there's very few things I care that. I don't care about the Chicago Blackhawks. If Conor Bedard's frustrated, get in line.
Yeah.
Probably going to be frustrated his whole life. What about Sidney Crosby when he was a kid being hacked and whacked and pulled and hooked? That was frustrating for him too.
And that's my point. Conor Bard gets it bad. He never, ever, ever, ever complains about the way he's treated on the ice. He knows that's part of the game. So all of a sudden he's going to start spouting off about how he's frustrated that they're losing. Come on.
Supposedly it was a private conversation. This is like a National Enquirer thing if you ever read it. Sarina's told friends that she's not happy Rod doesn't do his own laundry. She won't say it to Rod. You know.
Yeah, it's because here's what it is. Here's what it is. Everybody in Regina thinks they know everything because Conor Bard played junior there. So speaking of being the darling, he's the darling, and it's going to take them 2 decades to move past the fact that he played junior hockey there. They will never get over.
It'll be longer than that.
They're going to hang on to that as long as they can. So it's like so-and-so. They like to tell people, so-and-so said this because they get to tell everybody that they know Conor Bedard's dad. Guys, come on. Fucking let it go.
To a viewer question, I feel like now's a good time. Bure 1096 has shown up.
He finally started following him on Instagram.
Bure 1096 has entered the chat. And his name is Nick Alexander, by the way. Blogger, podcaster of some repute here in South Florida. He wants to know our thoughts on, and the quote was, thoughts on Anton Lundell this season. My thoughts are, he's been great, and I don't like analytics at all. I don't believe in their importance. I like reading them from time to time. But Anton Lundell is centering the Panthers' second line. Okay? It looks like I'm sitting there going off the eye test. He looks good to me. He's played every game. He's winning draws. He's, again, centering the number 2 line. I've been around him with the Panthers. He's a good guy. What do we need to know? He re-signed his deal for like $5.5 million. You know, he's point a game, everything. Sarina, here's an analytic that'll knock your socks off if you're wearing socks.
I never wear socks here.
I just found this on Twitter, so it's on the internet. It must be true. Of the top lines in the National Hockey League, lines that have played 100 minutes or more, these are the best 5-on-5 lines scoring. Number 1. What do you think is the number 1 line?
Well,
Sorry, I let it out of the bag.
It's got to be...
Gensel, Point, Kucherov is the number 1 line in the NHL for points at 5-on-5. Stay with me. Number 2 is Luosterainen, Lundell, and Reinhart. So just saying, in the whole National Hockey League, that's pretty good. I got the top 7 here. Do you care about this? Because I don't normally, but once you start looking for it, it's not that hard to find this stuff.
It's interesting to me because it's usually what you would least expect. Mm-hmm. You kind of got to sit and think about it sometimes. Like if you asked me and I had 20 minutes to think about it, I probably could have picked the Kucherov line, but I can't just whip it off the top of my head. But as far as like his play this year, it goes back to last year. Honestly, him and guys like Evan Rodriguez, they were at times in the playoffs the best players for the Panthers, the hardest workers. And after seeing him get whacked the other night by Dahlin, oof, that was a tough one. But he, I don't know, I think he plays really hard, and he's kind of one of those guys that knows he's never going to be the superstar on the team. Doesn't care.
Take us $5.5 million in tax-free Florida.
He works really, really, really hard.
Well, and I got to change the way I think in terms of wiring it. You're like, what are your thoughts on Lundell? I immediately thought that it's not been good. I think he's been good. And so he's played in 11 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points in 11 games, and his plus-minus is 0. And I always look at the plus-minus. I wonder how many people do, because if you're in the minus in that, you're costing your team. You're hurting your team. He's even. With a point a game,
that's
we'll take that.
Interesting concept, though, because he's playing with Reinhart and with Louis Dorainen, and if they're only at a 0, they should be at about a +4 by now. So that just goes to show you that I agree with you. It makes a big difference in what your plus-minus is.
So the number 3 line is Minnesota's top line.
Wow.
Kaprizov, Rossi, Zuccarello. What?
Kaprizov, man, that guy is unbelievable. I love him.
I saw somebody saying the Panthers should try to get him at the deadline. He is not going anywhere.
He's not up for sale.
Minnesota's one of the top 5 teams in the NHL. He's a big part of it. The line that not the most, second most in the NHL is in Vegas.
That plays the second most?
Yeah, minutes.
Jack Eichel's line?
Yeah, Eichel, Mark Stone, and Barbashev. That's the number 2 most used line. Besides, do you come here often? That's the most used line. You paying attention over there, Christian?
They're not even laughing. They fell asleep a long-ass time ago.
Yeah. Islanders' top line is 5th. Rangers' top line is 6th. And the most used line is in Winnipeg.
Oh,
Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Velarde.
If I had Kyle Connor on my team, he'd be out there double shifting. He has been really good this year.
So, yeah. So, listen, we are not going to be the show that sits here and reads you stats.
But Bill's here.
Yeah, Bill Lindsay, what do you think about this?
No, but Bill always has the stats dialed in. He's the stat guy.
Oh, my God.
He would be like, he's clearly very stunned. You can tell by the look on his face how shocked he is that Rod went over some stats. But
oh, my God. You have to understand. Here's Bill. He reminds me a little bit of a little kid comes running up to you with his iPad. Yeah. Did you see this? Did you see that? Did you see that? I'm like,
in the first intermission, hey, so I just saw that this, and that actually does really fascinate me. I like stuff like that. It is
not clearly as much as Bill.
Nobody does.
He's like, nobody dumps it in more than the Florida Panthers. And I'm like, yeah. I can see that. I don't need a calculator. Anyways, happy Halloween, guys. Can you go to a wide shot? Yeah, we're out of here.
Okay.
Unless you have anything smart to say. I've written down point 11, any other NHL observations, and we have 3 minutes, so make it good.
I don't think so, actually. I've vaulted off enough today.
Yeah, you got it off your chest.
Yeah, I feel about 10 pounds lighter.
All right, thank you, everybody. Get your list in for A, guests you'd like to see on this show, and B, restaurants in Nashville if you're down, because we're going to be heading there, and we would like to get a list and places to go. Other than that, Ben, great job as usual. Very spooky. See you next week here on Cats and Bolts.